In the last video, we looked at relative cell references when you copy formulas, how what the default is in Excel is to copy relative cell references, not the actual text of the formula. And today we're going to look at another way to copy formulas called absolute cell references. So this is basically the spreadsheet we've been working with on the last couple of videos. And what I want to do over here is I want to take these averages, which actually don't look very good right now, so I'm going to format, actually I'm going to take all of this stuff right here, and I'm going to format it as counting with reduced decimal places. Okay. And so now I want to know what percentage I'm spending of my budget on each one of these categories. So percentage is just a fraction. So I want to take 282 divided by 1023. I want to take the 500 and divide it by 1023. I want to take the 242 and divide it by 1023. So let's go up here and let's do our first formula. It's going to be equals H3 divided by H6. Okay, so it's highlighting the two items for me. I've selected them correctly. I can go ahead and hit the enter key. And it tells me I'm spending between 27 and 28% of my budget on food. So let's, the column says percent, so let's go up here and click on the percent sign and change it to 28%, which is exactly what it's supposed to be. Okay, now let's get our fill handle. Let's copy this formula down to the next three cells. And what happens is I get a error message, and Excel wants to make sure that you notice error messages, so it usually puts like a pound sign, puts the error message in capital letters, puts an exclamation mark or a question mark on the end. The idea is they want it to be noticed. I think they should probably also put them in red, but they don't. Also, you see a little green tab that appears in the corner here, and when that little green tab appears in the corner, it frequently means that something is wrong. It doesn't always mean that, but if you see it, it's a good idea to check it out. And the way you check it out is by going over to the little exclamation mark that appears inside of a yellow diamond over here, and that'll give you a little bit of help, although usually it's not a whole lot. And click on, it tells you this is a divide by zero error. So what we're doing is we're dividing by 0 instead of the 1023 like we're supposed to. And there's an also option here for help on this error. If you go to help on this error, usually you don't get a whole lot of help as far as I'm concerned. So let's try to figure out what the problem is. Let's go back and check our first formula, and that looks good. Now let's take a look at our second formula, and now we've got a problem. The divisor here is H7, and the reason is because, you know, when I did the first formula, it said get the top number, the blue one, from right next door, and then get the red one from over 1 and down 1, 2, 3. Okay, that works fine on the first one. But if I try it on the second one, and I go over 1, and then I go over 1 and down 1, 2, 3, I don't get the 1023 anymore. If I do the same thing here, I'm getting the correct blue number, but the red number that I'm dividing by is down here. And if there's nothing in a cell, Excel treats that as the number 0. And same thing down here. So this red number, this divisor, just keeps moving on down the page, and I don't want it to. I want to divide by the same number every single time. By the way, I'm hitting escape here. If you start editing a cell and you click someplace else without hitting escape, you're going to end up with some funny stuff. So make sure that when you're done looking at what's in a cell, if you don't want to edit it, make sure you hit escape to go back to where you were before. So our problem is, in our original formula up here, I want the H6 to be H6 every time. But the default in Excel is to make every cell reference in a formula a relative cell reference. So that's always going to be over 1 and down 3. Now, the way that you tell it to make it what's called an absolute cell reference instead of a relative cell reference is you put a $sign in front of the H, to the left of the H. You put a $sign to the left of the 6. The $sign to the left of the H means do not change the H when you copy this formula. The $sign in front of the 6 means do not copy the 6 when you change this formula, or when you copy this formula, rather. So I'm going to hit enter. Nothing changes here because this is exactly, what I had before. It was correct. But now if I get my fill handle and I copy this down, And if I double click on this, the top number is coming from next door, the bottom number is H6. Double click on this one, the top number is coming from next door, the bottom number is still H6. And if I go to the last one here, they're both referring to the same cell, so this time they both appear in blue, but the bottom number is H6. So the $ means that you do not want to change that cell reference when you copy it. Okay? So what you need to do, when you're doing the original formula is you need to figure out, well, if I go down to the next cell here, what's the formula going to look like? And the formula is still going to pick the number from the left, but it's going to pick the number down here from H6 every single time. So if it's not changing, so a smart thing to do would just be to say, well, this one's going to be equals H3 divided by H6, okay? And this one is going to be H4 divided by H6, and I forgot my equal sign there. And that's correct. But what did not change from this formula to this one is the H6. So that usually tells you it's going to be an absolute cell reference. Now, I want those $ back in there. I could do undo, but you can also copy formulas up as well. So I had the $ in this one because I never modified this. And now if I go up here and double click, I got the $. If I go here and double click, I got the $. Okay? So anytime you have a cell reference that you do not want to change, you must put a $ in front of the column letter and a $ as well in front of the column number. If you try putting it after the number, Excel doesn't know what you're talking about, and you get an error message there as well. Okay. Now, one more thing here. Let's double click on this. And if you were looking closely, you notice that I got those $ in there very quickly. And the reason I got them in there so quickly is because there's a keyboard shortcut. And the keyboard shortcut, it's not mnemonic, you just have to remember it. But it's function key F4. And if you hit function key F4, let's go over here and take a look at the H3. Okay, if I hit F4, it puts a pair of $ in. Okay. Now, if I hit F4 again, it gets rid of one of them. If I hit F4 again, it switches the $ around. If I hit F4 again, it goes back to the original relative cell reference that I started off with. So there are 4 options. There's the relative cell reference with no $. There's absolute with 2 $. And then these other ones are mixed. So this one means don't change the 3, but it's okay to change the H if you slide it over a column. And I'm going to hit F4 one more time. And this one means you can't change the H, but if you slide it down a row, you can change the 3 into a 4 and so on. Okay. And I'm just going to hit escape there because I don't really want to change anything. So if you want to quickly get the $ in, F4 is the shortcut key, but it really doesn't take very long to type a pair of $ in either, so it's not that big a deal. So absolute cell references are when you do not want a cell reference to change. I'd say about 75% of the time when you copy formulas, you're probably going to be doing relative cell references and you won't need the $. Maybe about 20% of the time you need the $. And if you add those two numbers up, you get 95%. And to find out what the other 5% is for, we'll take a look at that in the next video.